one among the very useful techniques that is used in reliability function deployment. Uh, I recall to have used this quite successfully in number of companies for building reliability is the operational planning matrix, which also figures in the reliability function deployment flowchart. So if we look into the operational planning matrix, it has actually in the on the top the stress divided into two categories. One can be referred as the normal stress. If we make a distribution of the stress for any parameter, this would cover about 95% of the stress limit. And this extreme stress limit would go beyond the 95%, maybe the last 5%. So that is being referred as extreme stress. For example, that if in a particular place in India, the operating voltage, we keep taking the records of the operating voltage time to time. The 95% of the operating voltage uh, may be covered under this normal stress, and the topmost 5% could be considered at the extreme stress. So for any designer, it is important for him to know that for whatever product that he has designed, for every parameter, what is the 95% common stress level or normal stress level, and what would be the extreme stress level. Because if marketing department or sales department plans to launch that product in a particular area, knowingly that there could be extreme stress, but the designer has not prepared the product from that viewpoint, that may really exert a lot of pressure on the stress on the product, resulting untimely failure, which could also be called as a reliability failure. Can it be avoided? That is the question that we are trying to discuss here. So yes, a operational field condition, if it is mapped and then segregated into these two parts, normal and extreme, then at the time of design verification, the designer could very well check the performance of the product under these two levels of stress. We'll also discuss that what is the implication in the customer's mind for being able to meet this normal stress level and the extreme stress level, and could it really result in winning the customer or a repulsive behavior from the part of the customer to avoid the product. On this side, we can see that there are two uh, cells. One cell is uh, both the cell actually has been plotted from the angle of the features and practices used by the customer, adopted by the customer. So one part is unavoidable feature practice, and another part is the avoidable feature and practice. So this is totally from the viewpoint of the user's control. I would say that these unavoidable features and practices are the basic practices for which the product has been bought by the customer. So without this, the product cannot be conceived. So therefore, if we try to take a look at the combination of unavoidable feature practices along with the normal operating stress level, that results in the normal use condition. So what is normal use condition? That means, say for example, the ambient temperature, or for example, the humidity level, for example, the dust level. So if they are coming under the normally what is felt at that particular area where the product has been sold. So we need to know that whether those basic functionalities of the product are the customers able to use it as desired in the normal stress. If it is not, then even in the entry zone itself, product may get rejected by the customers en masse. So it is designer's fundamental responsibility to address this. Without that, untimely product failure may really be resulted, and that can be avoided. Absolutely. If we take the combination of extreme stress for all the operating field condition along with the unavoidable practice or feature or basic practices, basically, I call it must do practices. So this combination actually helps the product to face a competitive challenge. That means to say that if this the product survives this extreme stress and works uh, appropriately, despite the stress being extreme, then we can call the product robust. That means robustness is what, by definition, that if the product continues to do its normal functionality, despite the fact that the stress level increases, without showing any adverse effect, then the product can be considered to be robust. And any robust product would definitely pose a formidable challenge to its competitors. So therefore, the extreme stress level could be considered to be important from competitiveness viewpoint. So marketing department, when they are planning to launch a particular product, and management in their product policy, if they consider the product for introduction in a particular area, for example, Ladakh faces very low temperature. For example, high altitude like Shimla or in Darjeeling, or even above that, maybe at Oli or such places. If a refrigerator is to be used, they would be facing on top of the low temperature also the low atmospheric pressure. So it is required to be verified before taking a strategic decision that whether such kind of product really is required to be launched in those areas or not. There is another perspective. There are certain user practices and features which are not very common. They are rather unusual. They are departure from the expected practices. But some of the customers have the habit of doing that. Now, if those practices are coming under normal stress level, that is a very excellent uh, opportunity for the marketing department to do the product planning and capture some of the niche market utilization. And that may result in the product introduction from altogether different angle in the market and may demand a very high a demand from the part of the customer. We can give an example. For example, that many users have the habit of putting hot plate uh, with leftover food directly into the refrigerator. And there is a clear instruction in the refrigerator manual normally not to put hot or warm products into the refrigerator as they are known to create some kind of thermal shocks. So that should be avoided. However, if that practice continues there and the temperature is not much, and people have been keeping that say another 5 degree or so as a normal stress, but these are avoidable features, but this despite that the users have been doing that. And if the organization design department can really come up with the product parameters in such a manner they design that it is able to withstand that slightly higher temperature, then that will be very much accepted by the customers and could be quite useful. Because instead of really leaving it to be for cooling purpose out, sometimes they may forget it to keep it in the refrigerator, so that could be quite helpful. But on the other side, if the same temperature is very high, that may be extreme stress level on the compressor. So we can say this is coming under dispute zone. So if the organization does not intend to really address that, there should be clear mention in their product brochure, product catalog, that temperature beyond so and so must be avoided. For example, taking directly from the micro oven and then keeping it in the refrigerator may cause the untimely failure in the refrigerator. So that could be uh, should be mentioned and should be underlined so that such kind of practices could be avoided. It may really come under the dispute zone. I have earlier mentioned about one of the story of a radio being kept above the oven, in a remote place, in a rural place, in an Indian village, resulting the radio catching fire. So definitely that would become coming under extreme stress and definitely unconventional practice. So company is not liable to really make any compensation under those kind of stresses. So let me repeat what I have been saying, that entry zone relates to the normal stress level for the operating condition under the conventional practices. This must be addressed. If it is not addressed properly, the product may not be able to really even make an entry. However, if the company introduces the product in an area where the stress level is known to be on the higher side, so it will be better if that the product is designed to be able to meet such kind of stresses, and then the product can be called robust, and then it will stand out in the competitiveness. And the third part I was saying, for the unconventional practices which are departure from the expected practices, if those features also can be accommodated in the design, that may result in a niche market acceptance by the customers. And company must be clear, designers must mention properly that beyond which stress level the product would fail, and they can be considered to be forbidden, abuse, and this is definitely coming under dispute zone. What we would try to do is that we would try to take this particular robust zone aspect further. So here we can see the extreme use zone, but which are coming under the unavoidable practices, must do practices. This is competitiveness zone, as I said earlier, and this is unavoidable and extreme operating condition combination. So this can be of two types. One is the occasional customer requirement may happen. For example, sometimes in this extreme peak summer season, the temperature touches, the mercury touches somewhere around 45 plus. So if it does not meet, this becomes a competitive issue. So therefore, company must understand thoroughly that what would be the fluctuating operating condition stress level, and if it is unavoidable by the customer, the product has to work there. Otherwise, it causes unnecessary negative reaction from in the minds of customer, which really creates a very good competitive edge if met by the designer. Another way is that regulatory safety requirement. Many products may really turn out to be unsafe at extreme stress level, and that may lead to product liability related problem. Suppose, for example, at an extreme stress level, but which is unavoidable by the customer, if the product catches fire, that could really be quite dangerous. So this has to be met, otherwise company would face serious problem. With these operational planning metrics and this explanation, I think the reliability deployment, which we are now going to take up in the next slide, would be made much clearer.